want to talk more about the cards as well because I mean that's what the kind of the whole theme of is with this.
Yeah.
So I mean, you guys were sitting there playing cards, and you had mentioned to me too that guys they didn't want you to keep so many cards. They wanted you to keep them for a certain amount of time and then go and get a new pack.
Right.
And what is the reason for that?
We used standard cards, tally ho, bicycle, the standard cards that you used for playing gin or poker and whatever. And after a while, they would get a little used up. And then some guys were superstitious, and they didn't want to use the same cards. I mean, Gotti, for example, he was a bad gambler. He wasn't good. I could bluff him easy. I could read him. I found a tell on him.
What was it?
What a tell is?
I think you said he would bite on a cigar, right?
Yeah, he had this long cigar he smoked, and he'd be sitting there, and the cigar, would be like, say, hanging from his mouth, like that.
Yeah.
And especially if he didn't have a good hand. But every once in a while, when he got a good hand, that cigar would go up like this.
Oh, okay.
Be up in the air, and I could read that. I knew he had a good hand. So I'd stay away from when that cigar went up in the air because it was to tell them he had a good hand.
Yeah.
Beside the fact that I had thousands of dollars stashed in the Sinatra Club behind a wall, and most of those guys would come in with $300-400, and if they went broke, they could borrow from the house. But Gotti later became a partner after about 6 months in the Sinatra Club for bringing all those guys in from Harlem. He brought in these Harlem drug dealers. So,
do you recall any of those guys' names? Nicknames or anything?
There was a guy named Charlie Scotty. He was well-known drug dealer. He was a killer. His brother had a big business in Times Square to do with, pornography and porno machines and other guys from the Bronx that came down.
Mm-hmm.
But the cards themselves, guys were superstitious, and they didn't want to use the same tally-ho bicycle B cards. So I asked one of the gamblers who used to go to a lot of poker games, hey, where can I get some professional cards? And he said, well, you got to go to Manhattan, to Madison Avenue. There's a company there that makes these K-E-M cards. I go, what's special about them? He says, they don't get old. They're plastic, coated. They'll last forever. Well, I started thinking, we're going through 10, 15 decks a night. At the end of the week, 3 or 4, that's 50 or 70 decks. That money adds up.
Yeah.
So I went to New York and I bought to Manhattan. I bought these chem cards, like a dozen or so, 6 or 8 boxes, and it was two decks in each box. So I had about 10, 15 decks of cards, and they had different designs on them because each year they would change, the design of the cards. Yet they were nice cards and they were slippery, and you didn't have to worry about them getting ripped. And guys couldn't mark them. You couldn't mark these plastic coated cards. Some guys tried to mark cards. They had ways of marking cards, like with a thumbtack in their finger with a Band-Aid over it, all kinds of stuff. Guys, scammers, we caught them. But what happened was I started buying more and more cards, and I threw them in a box and left them there. Well, over the years, after 3 years of Sinatra Club, I took all that stuff and I brought it home and dumped it in the basement of the house. Wasn't paying much attention. Chips. We had, a lot of chips and cards, and the game was over, like say in 74. But over the years, as I got into different businesses, I just left that box down in the basement. Now, when the 80s came, and 84, 85, and we were going to the witness protection program, we had to throw everything out, all the pictures of the mob guys I had and everything. We were supposed to throw those cards out. But I made a box up and I gave it to my sister who lived in Long Island. Well, they were sitting out there for years. Some of the stuff that my sister had was my 1963 U.S. Marine Corps graduation book from 63. And
Wow.
Here it was in the 80s. And then
Yeah.
she had a telegram from the government that I had a heart condition. So my sister had saved all the stuff, pictures, a lot of pictures of our family. So it was out there in the 80s, and I went back and got all that stuff. And then I brought it to Texas, and it just hung around. And when I split with my first wife, I kept the boxes. These cards were in these boxes for years and years and years. Well, by the time we did Sinatra Club the movie, I mean, I didn't want to use those cards in the movie, but I still had them. I mean, I had other stuff that, I was saving over the years. Like I had a couple of coins from the silver robbery we did. I would save stuff like that. It was like, it's sort of like my little souvenirs, my mementos. There was guys like Charlie Caniglia, a badass murderer, who I'll talk about eventually when we do the top 10 hitmen I knew. He took stuff off people and he saved all kinds of souvenirs from their body when he was killing bodies and chopping them up and putting them in 55-gallon drums of acid. A lot of criminals would save little collectibles from their life. I mean, that's just what you did. You looked at something, oh, I remember this. This came from this heist, that heist, And I was a saver. I did save stuff,
Yeah, I know you'd have a lot more if you didn't, if you would have gave them to your sister or whatnot. But you said you had the poker chips too? Did you
Yeah. I don't have any of those original ones. But when we did the movie, I recreated a poker chip. I'll have to show it to you and I'll put it on. You can put it up. And it had a little Sinatra Club logo on it. Yeah. I mean, over the years, I recreated some stuff, but some of the original stuff I had, I never thought much about selling it. I just kept it. I mean, last year, my wife and I, we had a lot of gold stuff and we went to New York City and sold a bunch of gold. And I had a cigarette case. I should have kept it. It was Tommy DeSimone's cigarette case. So,
that would have been, that's a hell of a souvenir right there, man. Like, you don't even see cigarette cases. What the hell?
Right. And it was like 140 grams of gold. I mean, it was heavy, big old thing, like, 4 inches like that, But, I didn't really, over the years, I really didn't save a lot of stuff. Once I got to Hollywood, I started saving things,
If you would like to purchase any of the cards that were played in the Sinatra Club, please go to the video description and click on our merch link. On our merch website, you can also find a copy of Salvatore's book called The Sinatra Club. You can get an autographed copy for just $25. Please subscribe to our Patreon channel. We offer all of our exclusive interviews on there. Our Patreon link is in the video description below. Hey, thanks for watching this clip. This clip came from our Patreon channel. The name of our podcast is A Lifetime of Mafia Tales. Me and Sal's podcast is all about his life in the mafia. Salvatore was a Colombo associate. Salvatore, also known as Sally Ubats, has many stories about committing crimes with all 5 of the New York crime families, such as hijacking, bank robberies, heists, and much more. Sal has many criminal stories about him and other high-ranking mobsters, such as John Gotti, Peter Gotti, Gene Gotti, Jimmy Burke, Angelo Ruggiero, Henry Hill, Dave Icovetti Sr., Tommy DeSimone, Dominick Caldo, Joe Brancato, and many more. During his time as a mobster, he had a social club he opened called the Sinatra Club. He would later go on to write a book and a movie about his time in the Sinatra Club. Sal has a lot of untold stories about John Gotti that people haven't heard. And as myself, my name is Adrian Martinez. I've been doing a podcast for the last 2 years. It's called Invest in Yourself Podcast. I've done a number of mafia interviews the last few years. I've done interviews with mafia associates, made men, and capos, also known as bosses. Salvatore and I have decided to partner up to start our own podcast, to drop some new untold stories about the mafia. Please subscribe to mine and Sal's Patreon account to watch all of our full exclusive videos about Sal's life in the mafia. The link to subscribe to our Patreon channel is in the video description below.